Yeah.
It'll be the day we show up and it's like 2 people. I know who we are.
These people are afraid.
They have to realize.
Exactly. Well, let's start from the beginning. Tell us how you came into writing. What inspired you to become a writer?
Chronologically, you have to start because you were making films when I was in high school. We're the same age, he's just way more talented, so you just start.
Well, I always loved writing since I was very young. I used to write stories without the teacher telling me to. After a while, I figured out that was weird. Like other kids at school would write stories too. When the teacher said, "Write me a story tonight, or you'll be punished," that's homework. But I would just do it if I had a break. That's what I wanted to do, was actually sit and write a story. And I remember writing stories at the kitchen table when I was like really young. I wish I had brought this story that I have at home. It's like a short paragraph-long story about an ant. It's called Ant's Bad Day. And in the story, this ant gets out of bed and he stubs his toe, and then he tries to eat something that makes him sick, and then he goes outside and he falls down a hole. It's really nihilistic. And then he ends up going back to bed, and the story ends with him being like, "I wish I'd never gotten out of bed." It's very sort of niche. There's no happy ending for this ant. So maybe there was already sort of a love for horror and death. But I always just loved storytelling. And I was also obsessed with movies, but the two, writing didn't meet movies for a long time.
When did it click for you?
Well, I guess I don't know. Like you spend that first. Did everyone else have that time? You know when you're a kid and you think the actors just make it up? I can remember watching Star Wars and being like, "This is impressive. They're just coming up with this stuff." And like it took me a while to figure out that they have to say words. And then I think, I guess, being the token annoying creative guy at any given high school, like, "School play? Yes, please." I know you guys have them in the States as well as in Australia. We have them too. So then, for that person, you think that acting's the way to go. I don't know why that is. I guess you're like, cameras, movies, I like them. In front of them is where it's best. And then when I was 15, I did a class. I don't know if they have media in high schools here. It's a subject in Australia. And so a media teacher, who I'm still friends with to this day, Quickfields, he showed us Psycho and kind of broke it down shot for shot. So I would say that class when I was 15 was the point where I started thinking about the personalities behind the camera. Like, it's not all about being in front of the camera, like someone's actually doing this. And started writing short forms. Yeah.
We're going to get into your inspirations later, but
I think the same. I think it's not much, the writing is like very technical, it sounds like very professional, right? Like being a writer, right? Like, I think the first thing is the storytelling, kind of, right? Like, I think a lot of people I know that the writers, directors, they all kind of always be good at telling stories, of any kind, from being very young. So it's always something I always enjoyed. But I used to do little comic books in school and high school. But then when I was 13, I was doing short movies since I was very young, and when I was 12, 13, we started doing like this superhero saga with my friends back in Uruguay. I played the superhero, and it was like a cape, and the cape was just a cover of my mom's couch that I had to steal and use it, and it was all that kind of world, and like shooting in the street, and writing became out of just a necessity because we thought that you have to just make it up. So the scenes were like, I gonna come in and come with some bullshit about like, it's a bad day today. Like I think that lady over there is in trouble. And then we have to figure out what comes after that because we were cutting camera. And then I think probably not until I was probably 17, 18, we were like on the fourth part of that saga, and we said like, we need a script this time. We need to have some plan of some sort. But that's not happened. I mean, but funny enough, like that's kind of that's kind of a history of cinema in general. Like people didn't have scripts back at the very beginning. They were just like, let's shoot some shit, and then someone said like, well, should we write it down? That's what the whole, the whole card at the beginning of the silent film now started popping out because some head of the studio was like, people don't understand shit, what's going on? We should put some card, and they start putting them up, and then it was like that. The whole transition to screenwriting kind of comes out of the necessity, because I think normally human beings just wants to go there and just do it, right? So that's when I started really writing. Like,
I have to ask you, Fede, did you used to like direct your friends when you would play games as a kid? Like, I'm thinking now, I used to do that.
like all with the rules, like
Yeah.
A lot of rules.
I would actually be like, okay, so you, so I'm like being eaten by the shark, and like you come in and try and kill the shark, but you don't, and then you run away, and then I come with you, and then if they got it wrong, I'd be like, let's just stop. Wait, I said to you that you come in and try to, I wasn't like, first of all, I was such a little shit, but I was already directing. It must have been fun for the other kids to be like, I'm just doing what he says, and I got it wrong. He's telling me to start again.
Do you remember the first script you ever read or ever saw when you're like, oh,
Ever read?
read or
Like a proper script. My fault when I made it Hollywood, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, because I made it to Hollywood means like I made a short in Uruguay, like how it got me a minute here, and when I landed here, I started being sent scripts, and I think that was probably the first time that I, like something I would consider like a real script, not in college, not like short film stuff that someone else because this is many years ago, not many years ago, 10 years ago, and it was maybe on the internet you could get some stuff, so maybe I read some good scripts back then, but
I read plays
scripts
before that.
It's not a lot of fun. Like, I mean, it's not something I enjoy doing, but like let's read a script. It's just it's such a kind of, you have to be an amazing writer to really make something that is entertaining as a novel, or like, because it's quite a matter of fact, right? So I don't know. Even today, if you ask me, like, I don't read a lot of scripts. I just.
how did you learn?
Question. I just I don't know. It's just like I probably like Google something, but even when I started, there was no internet. So how did I learn? It's a really good question. Oh no, I know. In instances, I have on my Amazon account. Actually, I did this recently. Like I'm obsessed with my users and online. So the users that I have them for like fucking decades. Like I never lose a password. Like just starting it. So my Amazon user is the same one since I started. So it's like you can go back to the 90s on my Amazon account. Like when it just started, I had an Amazon account, and I check what's the first thing I bought. It's just scrolling down, and I got it. The first thing is this. It was the Hollywood Bible of screenwriting. You know that one? It's like a pretty popular book on writing. That's the very first thing I bought, just because I just wanted to figure out how this shit looks. So it's like I was living with my parents.
The how-to books are good though. Like when you're starting out, it's kind of exciting. So like, what I would do for those books is go into Barnes and Noble, read them all, and then leave. I would sit there all day with the Borders, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone here old enough to remember Borders? I would go into Borders in Melbourne, sit down, read a screenwriting book all the way through, and then just go out and just stick with it all back on the shelf. It was really fun and economical at the same time. But I didn't really read scripts, so I graduated high school in 94, so the internet was not a gleam in my eye yet, and I remember I started film school in 95 in Melbourne, and I'd read like plays, tons of play scripts, which are obviously formatted differently. So the first short film I wrote was formatted like a play, with the name of the person. I remember the teacher at my film school being like, "What is this?" And I was like, "It's a script."
Yeah.
But there was a store in Melbourne. This is fun to talk about this stuff. There was a store in Melbourne. There's got to be, I mean, I guess I should jump on the internet. Someone in Melbourne must remember this store because it had to be highly illegal. It was a screenplay store that sold photocopies of screenplays. You walked in, the glass, it was a place someone rented. This wasn't a guy with a rug on the street corner. No, this was a glass, he had a door with a little bell, and you walked in, and the guy was there, and and I would walk in and there would be like rows and rows of movies that had not come out yet. Like, how illegal do you think this was? I need to know who this guy is, and I want the internet to help me find him. This is going to be like that cat documentary, except with way less mistake. But I need to find out who the illegal screenplay racketeer guy was in Melbourne. I remember going in there first year of film school, and that was the first time, and I was looking through, so this was, I guess this was 96 or 97, but I'm like looking at all the scripts, and then I figured out, because all the names were just written on the side, the Sharpie, and I found the script for The Game. And I was like, oh, shit, this movie hasn't even come out yet. Which I was like, handed it to him, half expecting him to be like, no, not that one. You can only buy that one for film. No, he was like, that'll be $20. So I study, now The Game, I like The Game, and I love David Fincher, but it's not like his favourite film, but that script, oh my God, I read that script like front to back 1,000 times. Like, I feel like that script was there. That was the first time I was like, this is how you write movies. And I just really kind of got into that. But yeah, that store had to be highly illegal. It shut down. It didn't last long, so I'm assuming somebody had something to say.
Knowing all this now, I'm really curious about your process then. When you have a story idea and you have to sit down and write a screenplay, where do you start?
Well, yeah, it's all pain and misery, I think, usually for everybody. But the thing is, like, but I guess, and I'm curious to know this about you. Like, before we get into how do you go through it, like, when do you realize, like, okay, I gotta be a writer? Like, it's a serious thing. I mean, we're both from countries that typically have, like, a Hollywood big industry. So the dream of, like, wanting to be a writer is kind of a ridiculous, particularly in Uruguay, it's ridiculous. Like, and genre movies even more, because that's, a lot of this countries outside the United States, they do have an industry of films. They make films, but they always have to be about the culture, about the country, about the place, because they're founded by the government. So, it's very hard to go, I'm just going to do a horror movie or anything like that. So I'm curious, like, for you, what is the moment when you think that you're delusional enough to say, I think this is, I'm going to give it a shot, or I'm going to make a second. But don't tell me when you felt like you, but like in a good story, show it. When did something that your character dramatized that he wasn't committing? Like, did you drop from something? Did you make a choice? How do you realize, fuck, I'm really doing this. I'm going for it, trying to be a filmmaker.
It's kind of happened in slow motion, I guess. You bring up a really good point, which is potentially this is hard for Americans to identify with, because, as Fede pointed out, in other countries, like in Australia, there's just no industry. It's a small film industry, but there's little to no industry of working screenwriters. Most people who write screenplays in Australia want to direct it. Like, here, there's this industry of writers, and there's a huge amount of people who just want to be screenwriters. That's their thing. You can't. That's really hard. So we've actually come at it from that same perspective that I just mentioned, of like, and then also, in the 90s, I feel like people today, younger people, they're so much more well-traveled. The internet has shrunk the world down. Like in 96, the idea of coming to LA, to another country, was, I would have thought it would have been just as hard to get to the moon. Like the idea of going to Los Angeles, plus I was young, so maybe if I was older, I would have been like, oh yeah, passports and work permits. But at 21 in Australia, I was like, there was a loud, deafening voice in my head being like, shouting every day, this is ridiculous. There is zero chance you're going to be a screenwriter or a filmmaker. You weren't born in the US. That's where all the movies you love are made. And you're never going to be there, you're never going to live there, and you're never going to be... And despite that voice shouting, you just kind of press on. And so at film school, I met James Wan, and we hung out a lot. and he made his own films. I made the worst short of all time. And then I wish I could show it, because then all you guys would be like, he was right. It really was amazing if you were like, you got it. When we finished film school, that's when we decided to team up, because that's when the cold wind of reality comes home. When you finish film school, and you're like, oh, no one cares about my ambition. I thought everyone cares. And so we decided to team up, and basically the way we worked it that we thought was good is he'll be the director and I'll be the writer. He hated screenwriting, and he was a super talented director, so I was like, I'll leave the directing to him. There's strength in numbers. And so that was really the first time, and we just sort of blindly attacked this thing. The first time I thought, oh, this is actually happening, or like, is when I wrote the first draft of Saw. Like, we had written other scripts before, but it just never felt real, it never felt good enough. And then with Saw, it sounds terrible with an Australian accent, Saw. Saw. It sounds much better in American trailer voice. That's how I'm saying it from now on, in American trailer voice. Saw. When we wrote Saw, that's when I was like, oh, this is actually, I feel like we could do something with this. I didn't think we would make it here in Los Angeles. I thought that we would go and spend 10 grand of our own money and shoot it on a video camera. And I thought, this will get into a film festival. This will be our, like, calling card movie, you know. And it was during the era of, like, Pi and, like, the Blair Witch Project, and these sort of indie movies in the late 90s that would actually make a splash.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't necessarily light the box office on fire, but the director's career would suddenly be happening. Like, all of a sudden, Darren Aronofsky's a thing. And it's like the Velvet Underground theory, like, you know, not many people bought the Velvet Underground's first album, but everyone that did started a band. Like, you know, only 20 people saw Pi, but all 20 of those people were like studio heads.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You become industry famous, and so we were like, yeah, this will be our calling card, and we'll put it in festivals. So that would be the first time.
What year did Saw come out?
It came out in 2004.
That's quite good. My moment where I connect to is when I had a job. I was doing music videos when I was in my early 20s, and I got hired with a small production company to do commercials. And it was like the shittiest, smallest budget stuff that we did in Uruguay. And then I was 2 years in, I was directing much, but I was getting paid. I managed to get away from my parents' house. I like paid my rent and everything. And then with this short story that we wrote, my co-writer wrote this year, like he wrote the story, and we suddenly won a scholarship to go and move to Amsterdam to do a master's in screenwriting. And that was the whole deal. I was like, should I quit my job that I really get paid? Can I have a real career do this thing? Or how much do I really care about the feature films? And I decided to do the feature film thing. I was like, fuck it. My parents were like, you're insane. You have a real job. Like, do that thing. And I quit and moved to Amsterdam for a year. And like, it must have been the first day of, like, so the first week or second week of class, one of the teachers was like, there's this movie you should see. And they show us Saw. And that's how behind I am. I was just starting to, here's an answer. Yeah, I was just starting to do the masters. You already have made it.
You made a short. Wasn't that your sort of break for you? Is the short film that you made?
It was panic attack. Yeah, it was when I came back to Uruguay. Like, I came back to Uruguay after the masters with a lot of energy and I wanted to do things. And I did with no money and a bunch of friends. We did this short called Panic Attack, which was just one to being attacked by a lot of giant robots. And I got the lucky break of put it online. I didn't want to go to festivals or anything like that. I just felt like I wanted the world to see it. I worked very hard on it. Been doing everything myself, the visual effects, everything, absolutely everything. And then I put it online, went to bed. You're gonna hate this story, by the way. Just say, hey, be careful with that. But basically, I went to bed and I woke up and I had like 150 emails from Hollywood. I thought it was a joke because my friends knew, like, they can't wait to get the call, which I did. I was like, really, I didn't. There was no way I would ever expect. My ambition was maybe I get to show it to this company called The Asylum, this is a Hollywood company that makes the shittiest knockoffs of like they're sick. I was like, maybe I get to show them, because I was watching this movie, they did like Transmorphers. They make these movies. They ended up doing Sharknado, by the way, like many years later, but back then they were just doing all these bad movies. I was like, I could do better visual effects than that. And part of the motivation, like to finish it, was like, maybe I show it to the asylum. I even said to them, they never answered my email. I was like, I would do this thing, maybe we could do better stuff that you guys do with no budget. And that was the whole vision. But then I got all these emails. Actually, true story, a guy from One Brother calls me, and I pick up the phone. He said, "Oh, yeah." And then the guy has like a Latin accent. So I think he's one of my friends, And I'm like, on the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm calling Warner Bros. We saw you short, we think it's amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'm peeing very loud. I'm peeing. And I don't give a shit about what he's saying." And the guy was right, like, this guy's insane. And then he tells me, I'm like, "I would make like 15 movies a year," or something like that. I was like, "You just all make like 15 movies a year? Like, you're a small company." Like, no, when should a big company? And while all that is happening, I open my computer, I look at the emails, and I see all the emails, and I'm like, fuck, this conversation is real.
So
Yeah, it's really
sent
bad.
the short, unsolicited to just random to any
I
production
didn't send it to
company.
anybody, I just uploaded it to YouTube and went there.
Oh, wow.
It was one of those weird things that it was catchy enough that it just started spreading. And and it was different times. Like YouTube was 4 years old back then. This is 2009. So YouTube was quite new. Nothing was HD in YouTube. They had just upgraded the format to HD. So now it was like, oh, now you can put HD stuff in it. So anybody will watch anything that was HD just to watch. And it was one of the first ones. I think it kind of spread really, really fast. And it I don't know, something like 2 million views in like
You got all the
3 days.
emails from all the junior guys at every company where their boss was like, "Go through YouTube and find the next Spielberg,
Yeah.
go to it."
Oh, believe me. And then it happened that year. There was a lot of that, but it wasn't. It was kind of. It was even rare at the time. I was sure. It wasn't something that I thought it was like, oh, this is the easiest industry ever, because I landed here. I think one of the agencies flew me over on a Friday, and I showed up on Monday, and I don't know anybody. Right? I'm like, what the fuck?
This is the worst TED talk ever. Put something on YouTube and wake up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like a bad example. That's why I say you in the store. But then, and then the hardest part, that's what the writing comes in. It's like what I was telling you. I got here, I on my own, just really bumped into this guy in a screening that I was invited to. And we talk movies, and I go back to the hotel, and I got my offer to have my first movie deal. It was just based on that. It was like this blind deal to make whatever movie we were going to come up with. And that was, with Nathan Kane, who was producer of my first 2 movies. And he knew Sam Raimi, and he said, like, Sam Raimi's so short, he would love to meet you, talk with him. The problem is that it was that they started sending me scripts and samples for writers, and I was surprised at how low the level was in general. People think we're like just obvious or repetitive or boring. There was nothing great. We did work, we hired a writer, and the writer then delivered a script that was mediocre and killed that movie. So suddenly, like a year after all that great momentum, where I was like, oh fuck, I'm dead. Like, it's happening. I'm in Hollywood. I was back in Uruguay. The project had died. I had to quit my job and say fuck you to a lot of people. You can imagine. And I was back in Uruguay, like with my tail between my legs.
By spitting in their face. That part was
Yeah, exactly. Well, but look, I love just like fucking like thinking I'm good to Hollywood, and it was also because the deal was announced in Variety. It was on the cover of all the newspapers in Uruguay. I was me going like, yeah.
Just you doing this on the steps of the airplane.
So everybody was like,
Future Hollywood
he's gone, he's in Hollywood. Like,
Uruguay.
he's gone forever. So then they were bumping to me in downtown with a little bag of groceries, and they were like, we're supposed to be in Hollywood?
Yeah, yeah.
Big? And how do you explain it? Well, that's not that simple. Yeah, the project did not work. But and then about that time was when Sam asked me, like, I think he just took me in there. I was like, yeah, we like each other. We got along. So he gave me the chance to do Evil Dead. He was like, would you be interested in doing a new Evil Dead? And I was like, yeah, but can I write it this time? Because I felt like, someone's gonna fuck it up by me, and it's just some guy that I don't really know very well. And then even Sam was crazy enough to say, sure, you can barely speak the language, but no. So he let us write it, me and my co-writer. So we went back home, like to Uruguay, and trying to avoid people in the street because everybody was like, "We're supposed to be now." So we're like locked in the apartment. Like, things better be good because they're undone. And I would have been done forever. It would have never happened. I would have been like, someone told me like, "Thank God you made that movie. Otherwise, you would have been the guy with the short for a long time." That is really hard to get the thing going. So they haven't gone to that. When I quit that job and went and did that master's in screenwriting, I educated myself a lot on writing, like saved my life. It really did. It would have been the most embarrassing future in Uruguay, like popping to everybody, go like, "Hey, comes Mr. Hollywood," because everybody knew, like it becomes this whole deal. So thank God, like the educating yourself and all that. It's like, for me, it's like what's the thing that saved me to be prepared. Yes, the whole thing of luck is, preparation means opportunity. Like that's so true. Like for anybody of us here, like when, you better be prepared. Like when that thing suddenly happens, and like, "Hey, do you think you can take on this thing?" You really have done while you were not really working in the industry, everything you could to really prepare yourself and study and write that scripts and all that. I think that was my lesson, at least.
Can you talk about that, like taking on such beloved IP as Evil Dead, as The Invisible Man? How did you approach that? And did you have any trepidations about taking that on?
Not really. I mean, I remember at the time, like it was a lot of people got like, how do you, like the pressure of doing a movie, which you think it's a. But like you in that situation that I was, like Sam Raimi shows up and said, like, "You want to do it?" And like, there's no world where I'm like, "You know what, Sam? A lot of pressure, and people compare my movie with yours. I think, like, let's just go take a pass." And you go back to your life. There's no way. So when that showed up, I was like, "Well, fuck yeah, let's go, let's do it, I'll do it." So it's a luxury. That's a luxury I can take today of saying like, "I just don't maybe that, I don't, but at that time, it's fucking, you have to do what you have to do, and believe me, at the time, even, and I made a lot of horror shorts, but even a horror movie wasn't what I was imagined doing the first time around. And thank God I made that movie. I love that movie, and it was a great experience. But it's a luxury. The things you mentioned is kind of a luxury that you don't have at the beginning. You have to do what comes your way, I think, and do the best you can. And that's why I tried it within the movie. But we really approach it with a lot of respect. We really wanted to be as faithful as we could to the original film. And I was lucky to watch it when I was 12, and it made a clear impact. So it wasn't for me about rewatching it. It was about, like, if I can capture the feelings that I went through watching that movie as a kid, how do I do that to people today? That was the thing. I felt like if I captured that, if I could repeat that at some level, I was going to feel that it was a success.
How about you, Invisible Man?
I guess I didn't feel as much pressure with The Invisible Man. Like, Evil Dead has like a vocal fan base, and it's more recent, it's part of people's childhoods. People of a certain age grew up watching it on VHS, so there's this rabid, protective, sometimes toxic fan culture around it. Whereas The Invisible Man, we're talking about a novel that was written in the 1800s. It was made into a film in 1933 for the first time. So it just doesn't have that, there's not a sort of hardcore gang of 100-year-old people being like, "Don't you touch my fucking favorite novel." It's like, whereas Evil Dead, you're really messing with, Steve's favorite movie. And so I think there's a lot more courage. I felt a lot more freedom. Maybe if it was Dracula, I feel like even though Dracula is also a novel that's just as old and has been made countless times, the cultural footprint of Dracula is bigger, and there's been more recent iterations of it. So maybe I would have felt a bit more fresher, not so much from a fan base, but from the past iterations of this work. Like, Coppola's version of Dracula and all the different great versions of Dracula in whatever form would have been sitting on my shoulder. Whereas with The Invisible Man, I don't know, I just felt over the years, I don't feel like a great version of it had been done. You know, there's been versions of it, obviously, but I don't think like Memoirs of an Invisible Man with Chevy Chase is the definitive. So I just felt, I mean, you know, but I don't think I didn't feel that pressure, you know. I felt like
But I'm sure knowing you, like the thing is, maybe I'm wrong, but the pressure usually people like us, and we you know, full disclosure, we know each other, like we bump into each other in the morning when we'll leave our kids at school. And so they, knowing him a little bit, the biggest pressure comes from within, right? Like it's come from yourself and wanting to make a good movie, you want to prove yourself. That usually it's like so much bigger than any external pressure that you might have, or like what people's gonna think, or like.
I mean, and also, you know, with horror is a lot like comedy in that it's this functional genre. Like it's trying to do one thing. It's trying to elicit an involuntary vocal response.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're making a comedy, you have this one barometer for success. It's the same with horror. They really are close cousins, and so I feel like all sins are forgiven with horror if it's really scary, if it's really frightening. You know, nobody's ever going to say like, oh my God, that comedy was fucking hilarious, but I hated it because the story just wasn't. Nobody's ever said that in the history of the world. Like it could be about two guys sitting in a bus stop for 2 hours. If it's hilarious from start to finish, you don't care. You know, and the same is with horror. It's just, so I feel like when you're writing horror, as long as you're serving this one goal, you know, you don't have to worry. I knew that no one would be like, oh my God, that film was so frightening, I won't sleep for a week, but I hated it because he messed with the Invisible Man mythology. Like, I knew that wouldn't happen. I knew I had to just get, I knew I just had to make a tense, frightening movie to get out of any of those complaints.
Who's watched it here? All right.
Who's watching it again this weekend? Not enough hands, ladies and gentlemen.
So when talking about that, like the horror essentials, you know, how do you approach kind of writing scares? And maybe after that, you know, how do you innovate on the genre in terms of the story?
I mean, I think you make story and scares as two separate things.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess with scares, again, to use the comedy analogy, they're like jokes. You know, like, I almost wish I could do one of these panels with a comedy writer to talk. Yeah, so we can just talk about the similarities, and also talk about joke structure, because it's so similar. Like, okay.
Can you write the scare? You know, like, can you? So for me, it's a lot of the execution, same like the joke. There's a, it's really an art when it comes to directing. Not every director can do it. You've seen it sometimes. It wasn't the page. It wasn't. But I'm always curious, like, because I remember in my movies, like the scares itself, when you're gonna do it, like if it was written exactly like that. I mean, just to clarify, when we're talking scares, this is what's scary. I mean, maybe you guys know this, but there's an obsession usually in this movie when you make a horror movie. And when it didn't work, what the studio makes you go and reshoot the scares or rewrite scares, so they get people together, right? The scares is like an Invisible Man, the white paint of it is fantastic scare, right? But they're so hard to do right, because if she was just going to the stairs and then suddenly just feels the thing, if you're not alert enough, it just doesn't work. If you're too alert, it doesn't work either. Like people are waiting, if people suspect he's gonna be there, and doesn't work either. So there's all this art of like getting people attention. What's that? Okay, there's something there. So you're trying to get everybody to have all their senses in tune, like really squinting, really looking. Then you kind of diffuse it. You made them do exhale, and when they don't have air inside and they think, that's when you hit them, right? That's one of the classic techniques of doing it. But do you write that? Like, you write to give the director, make sure he has the attention collar, the diffuse, and the hit. Like
100%. Like I mean, before I started directing my own scripts, I was writing for other directors like James Wan, I always try to make it scary on the page. Like a script is written to be read. A film is, some directors write, like they just don't care. Like I've read great filmmakers that I love. You'll read their scripts and it's like reading the phone book. It's just, they wouldn't shot like, see you of so-and-so staring, and it's just, to me, I want it to read as exciting as a novel. I want it to read as if you're watching the movie happen, and so it's written in a really scientific way. Scientific in the sense that I'm spacing things out and putting things in certain places for the scare. I actually want it to be scary on the page. And like Stephen King, right, he can write scary stuff, which is very hard to do. I think it's not easy, but when you have the benefit of visuals and sound, you can scare people, right? To scare people with words is hard. Like what Stephen King does is incredible. Like there are Stephen King books I read when I was a kid that kept me up for a week, right? And I don't know if, or maybe people do, but I suspect that people don't fully realize how hard that is for him to scare you. He can't control where you read that. You can read it in a brightly lit room. You can read it in the middle of the day on a beach. For him to get into your head just with words without the benefit of darkness and sound is incredible. And so that's what I aspire to with my scripts. Like my goal is for someone to read a script of mine, if it's a horror script, and go, holy shit, that script was frightening. That was so frightening. And like with the Invisible Man, I really wanted it to be tense. It wasn't so much that I wanted it to be, I wanted the script to feel like the movie, like just so tense. And as Fede just said, with scares, you've got to understand what's been done before. If you're a horror writer, you should be studying horror movies. And then it's 2020, so now we're sitting in this rut of these jump scares, right? We've all seen these movies where there's these diminishing returns of movies, and there's a real inelegant kind of lazy type of jump scare that happens now. And it's, as Fede said, a lot of the time it comes later, it's a studio fix, but the insult is, as a horror fan, the insult is that they, being the studio, the filmmakers, whoever's making this film, they think that's enough. Just have the orchestra go, dun. Yeah. And then 9 times out of 10, it's just the best friend being like, you forgot your credit card. It's like, fuck you. Like, talk about insulting your intelligence, right? And so
that doesn't exist anymore.
I don't want that. Have you seen a film in the last 2 weeks? One of those lazy, oh my god.
It's just watching the good ones. I've never watched just the random ones. I don't know. But I remember one that I know what you did last summer. That was the peak of you forgot your credit card. It was like when they started doing that. It was just like someone he's like, hey buddy. That was 20 years ago. So
yeah,
I felt like that got inspired.
Nods out there, Fede.
That was good. More movies.
Bro, you got to see some more movies. I mean, here's the thing. Like, it's up to you guys. It's up to you guys to make the films that you want to see. Like, this is what happened with horror in the 80s. It got such a bad reputation is because these movies were being pumped out cheaply. So when you're writing a new one now, you have to draw up a column of what not to do and fill that up before you start writing. Decide what you don't want to do. Like even a simple rule, like on the first Insidious movie, so that was made in 2009, and James and I had a list of rules, and one of them was no fake jump scares. So no cats, no friends. Mm-hmm. Even just that little simple rule. It was one of many rules, but just that simple rule got noticed. Like you would read in reviews, like it's appreciated, or people notice this stuff. So you've got to know what not to do. You have to study it, and you have to go in and write your horror movie and go, where are they not expecting this scare to happen? And you also have to realize that there's too much emphasis on the sort of adrenaline spike. If a movie is an EKG chart that has these little ticks upwards, the scare, the fun is not in the spike. That's only fun if it pays off after an extraordinary amount of torturing the audience. The fun is in the torturing. You've got to drag it out. You've got to, and also let the audience work for you, because they'll put a sting in there. Like, I remember going to see Hereditary, right? And I'm sitting in the crowd, and towards the end of the movie, spoiler alert, lock your ears if you haven't seen it, towards the end of the movie, the young boy in the family, the teenager, is sitting on his bed, and you suddenly realise that out of focus behind him is Toni Collette up against the wall. And they don't sting it and they don't draw attention to it, but the audience provided the orchestra. Like, in a theatre, I just heard a bunch of people slowly be like, like it was, that's what you want. You don't want, so you have to, you cannot rely on some disembodied violin doing the work for you a year from now. Yeah, we'll just sting that and it'll be fine. Like, so you have to really build these scares like jokes and craft them. They're not cheap. And the thing that annoys me is when people think it's easy. Like, they think it's easy and they're ashamed of the horror genre, like, without naming names. There's been recent horror directors who've made horror films who, in interviews, refuse to acknowledge that it's a horror film. It's a film about family or something. For fuck's sake, man, don't take advantage of the genre's benefits and then deny. So it's like, you have to care and you have to know what not to do. Like, have your list.
I would add to that you have to dare as well, because I mean, it's easy sometimes to say, okay, you got to do this thing, but the problem is to know how to do it. I mean, what I saw a lot, like, in young writers and with horror particularly, happened to all of us. It's like we notice that thing, the horror movies have good scares in them, and some of the classics one have less, but they have usually a couple, and some of everybody knows, like, so the biggest scares in movies are maybe not in a horror movie. There's always those lists of the biggest scares in non-horror movies, good jump scares that are here and there. So, but what happens a lot is, I think it's that there's in the same vein of like kind of rejection of the genre, like you know the ones that have been done, right? So you write it and you go, I mean I've seen the cat or the lady or the monster showing up right behind or the I remember I was who did that Trachtenberg did that Black Mirror episode where the guy is like closing a lot of little doors and the camera is right here and he's closing the doors and he's going to close the third one. It's like, there's going to be someone behind it, right? And day two, there's a person right there. Like the classic, I close the fridge and someone is right there. There's many that have been done a million times. And so what worries me sometimes, there's the reaction of the writer is like, when you're not experienced or you dare to do it the first time or you get a shot of doing that first horror movie, it's like, because it's hard to top, it's hard to innovate, the reaction is like, you know what, I fucking hate those scares. Let's just not do them. Or they just don't do them at all because and I feel like sometimes we disguise it as, we're better than that, we're better than the scare, we're better than the classic push down the hallway and bang and something happens there. Like we believe that it's better. And a lot of times it's just fear telling you just don't know how to do it better. That's why. And so the reaction is like, just not gonna do it. Oh yes, I just gotta push towards the door and it was nothing. And move on with the story. And I'm just gonna be clever by not doing it. And anybody can not do something, and just avoid it. Anybody can do it. It's easy. Sure. Just avoid it. Don't fucking do it and that's it. But I think you really dare and like crack your brain and like say watch movies and investigate and trying to figure out how do I top it, how do I do it better. Which in a way, like your buddy James, he did The Conjuring, and even Insidious was, I remember at the time because they were completely inexpensive movies. It was an exercise of how can I really come up with a lot of unique scares that I haven't seen before with no budget, just creativity, the camera, and just how do I pull in turn, how someone pops up, someone like a fucking Darth Maul show up right behind, like all of that sort of thing. There is an art to that, and Insidious and Conjuring kind of did that thing of Conjuring when the whole trailer was like, so I'm gonna put the thing up, there's gonna be a music, when the music ends, so they're playing on what you've seen a million times, like this is the scare. And even when they're advertising to tell you what is gonna happen, then it doesn't. Remember, like the little thing closed and it wasn't disappointment, and then it was right behind us somewhere. So it was the witch came from a different place. So that was, the writer saying, I've seen it a million times, but I gotta come up, I gotta top it. I gotta dare to top it and maybe make it ridiculous out of me just by trying and failing, right? But although I was encouraged, like there's an art, there's the beauty of that. There's the scares. I particularly love them when they're well done, and it is I think it's a huge part of the craft of writing and directing horror. But I felt a lot of that like recently it's not that the good ones. A lot of writers that just don't want to go there, and I think a lot of it's just a fear of like it's so hard to improve it and
it's not that they're bad. It's just that you want to do them correctly, earn them. I mean, they're not the laugh. A jump scare is not the equivalent of a laugh in a comedy. That's like too much of the conversation in horror is revolving around jump scares. That's just a trend we're going through right now. I mean, Don't Breathe.
But it was doing the jump. It's the moment that just gets you there. Like it just inject a shot of fear into your heart, right? Like it just gets the audience. And even if nothing happens for the next 10 minutes, you're still shaking because of that moment. Like the moment you're describing Hereditary, like it's always. That's why I call it scare. Not about it's a particular jump scare. The bang.
Right.
That's one thing, but I think the scare in general is just there's many ways to do it. There's satisfaction, and for me at least, I really got a kick of a good one, and the one that you have to deal with, not the one that disappears. Right?
But was it different kind of writing a psychological thriller versus straight horror?
I think so. I mean, I guess I didn't really have any rules or think about it very much. Like when I start writing a screenplay, usually the part I like best about writing is not writing. And so I try to stretch that out as long as possible. So that's the research period where it's like, I've got a notebook. Yeah, exactly. I've got a notebook and I'm usually like just filling it up with any scrap of idea that comes to me, watching movies, putting a soundtrack together, and then it usually takes at least a couple of months to start to formulate a picture of what the movie's going to be. So during that time, I'm usually not thinking about what genre it is, or I'm not putting it in too much of a box. You kind of want it to be unconscious, or that's how I want it to be anyways. It's kind of like little scraps and bits float around. It's not until you stand back later that I see what it is.
What was your soundtrack for The Invisible Man?
Do I have it up here? I mean, it's like I think for Invisible Man, it was less sort of screechy horror stuff and more like kind of cold, like a lot of what Trent Reznor does for the David Fincher movies. A lot of this sort of stuff, but it's all putting together a soundtrack when I'm writing is just creating a mood. So I'll have like 15 songs that I'll just keep listening to. And then I'll just come up with different scenes, and then at the end of that process, then I have to like hang it all in an order. So that's when I'll start doing like scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. But like, as Fede said, you're trying to build these moments that I was hoping the whole movie would be tense, and then there would be these reveals. I actually call them gifts. They're like little gifts that you give to the audience. It could come in any form. It could be a laugh, or it could be them getting a job, or it could just be them like shrinking down in their seat. Like what you want to engage them viscerally in some way, and you sort of set. For me, I don't know how Fede does it. I think some writers are more scientific about it, like a blue sticker on each card where something big happens. Or I keep more and more of an internal metronome. And then once I've got the scene cards up, like 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll actually sit and like play it and watch the movie in my head. Like I'll stare at the board with the scene cards on it, and I'll just sit and like run through the movie like I'm sitting in a theater. And you sort of get a sense of like where things should But like, there's this, I don't want to ruin it for those who haven't seen it, but there's a scene in The Invisible Man that's like designed to be really shocking. And I wanted everyone to feel safe. You know, so I had people around. So I deliberately constructed this scene to be like safe and loud. I knew the thing is, you can weaponize a modern audience's knowledge of movies against them. Like, obviously this room is filled with people who are like very cinema literate and study movies, but even people who don't study films like you guys do, even they are so cinema literate, and they know the tricks and the tropes. They've watched so much content their whole lives that they can unconsciously pick where things are going, and you can weaponize that knowledge against the audience. If you know, it's fun. It's like it's actually fun to misdirect. And so with that, I did it a million times in this movie, like use their knowledge to misdirect. But in this one particular scene, I knew the audience would feel safe because it was loud and there's lots of people around and it was bright. And also I knew they would feel safe because something big had just happened. And we've become so used to modern horror movies going, da-da, and then there's a little fade out for a couple of scenes. And I was just like, wanted to be like, fuck you. And so that's an example of writing, using the audience's knowledge of the tropes. You know, I guess off the top of my head, an example would be a real trope that Fede pointed out is like, you open the mirror cabinet, you get your medicine, shut the mirror, oh, there's someone there. Like, you know, not even hacks do that anymore, right? Because it's just, but it's fun to actually make everyone in the audience for 1 second will be like, they'll just tense up if you show them the mirror for a second, and then you shut it and there's no one there. We did a lot of that in The Invisible Man. We were always trying to stick the needle in and have everyone always be going, wait, should I be afraid of that? Yeah. What's happening? Like, I wanted the audience to be a quivering mess by the end. Like, why would you do that to me? I'm just trying to enjoy myself. And so I just, in every scene, I was like, what's the way to torture people here?
But what you're saying is that's exactly the talent, right? That not everybody has the ability, but apart from the talent to coming up with a solution, like that scene you talk about, it was one of the best scenes in the movie because I thought I knew, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was just so surprised by that twist because a lot of the tropes, it was the moment where there's a healing between the characters, and now this is the moment where they arc and they're gonna hold their hands, and then oh fuck, I never imagined it was gonna go there. But because you just think about a lot of the writers here, and if you, depending on the experience you have, I think a lot of the stuff I will push you to do more is to push the bar high. And I think what Leigh's saying is like there is a way, even to know how to craft the mirror. I remember like the first stuff I was writing, if I actually did the mirror on Evil Dead years ago. This wasn't behind.
That was a great film.
It wasn't behind. It was her own face as she closed it. I was like, but I think there's a moment in all of our careers that all we want to do is fit in. We should be good enough to be as good as the movies that I see, right? Like, I think this is as good as that movie that came out 2 years ago. Like, because that already is an accomplishment on its own. Because things that maybe for you do it for a living, the mirror, you can tell me 20 in a second. When you're not a professional writer, you don't come up with 20 in a second. It just even takes some time and work. It goes like, hi. And then you come up with the fridge, and you go like, that's pretty good, right? And you pitch it to somebody, and they're like, yeah, it's like I've seen it, but yeah, it's pretty good. Because all you're trying to do is like be as good as the other stuff you see. But the issue, the art of this business is like, when you get there, even if you do a script, and all of you have one of those scripts that you don't understand why nothing's happening with it, and people have read it and nothing's happening, and it's probably pretty good, it's pretty solid, and you probably think, look, this is way better than that other movie piece of shit that they actually made, and mine is better. Why that happened? Probably that happened before, maybe. So it's the catching up to be, you know, a Leigh movie this weekend is like the thing. It's what everybody's gonna start saying next week. It's like, well, what Invisible Man meets what the fuck? Like, it's just, that's gonna be what all the students are gonna be saying. it did a lot of, it accomplished a lot of things that were new in the genre. For me, I was watching, I was like, fuck, I never thought of this and that.
Yeah.
But that means that there was a version of that script that was as good as all the stuff that came out last year and the year before, the good stuff, right? But then I think the good writer, you have to push yourself to do it. Like when you write the generic one, and you go like, this is good. It's like, yeah, and to dare to delete it, even if we took a lot of work to get to make it work, because making it work won't get your movie made. You know, like getting it work is kind of the bare minimum, and like to really transcend, you have to dare to kill all those things that just anything that felt like it's generic and stuff like that. And I think that's definitely what you do. Like every time you expect a generic, it doesn't happen, or it changes, subverts, but it's hard because even match that level is hard in general. But I tell you, like once you dare to put it that bar and it's not good enough, which is normal. Like when I met Sam Raimi, like pick directors here when I met them, and I was like, the thing that surprised me the most was that like they had great ideas. That's great, and like I think it's good enough. But they will always to reach for the stars and like really trying to crack it in a way that suddenly you reach a place that you've never seen before. And I think that's it's a scary thing to do. It's a scary thing to do in general for any writer. But your movie is a testament that when you really try it really pays off.
Before we go to Q&A, I know you guys are going to get to ask some questions, but I just want to add one tiny thing, which is that Fede makes an insanely great point. And I would just want to emphasize it, is the thing of you're not trying to write a horror film that's as good as what's out there right now. You're trying to write something that's better than things that haven't come out yet. You have to, I wouldn't have articulated it as well as Fede did, but it's like, you can't look at the landscape and go, that's the bar. You have to be like, you have to delete that document and go, this is going to be something that no one's ever seen before. And that's weirdly what gets people's attention. I think there was a myth for a long time that if I write a screenplay that reads like that, then I'll get their attention because that's what they want. What you discover, I guess, once you start working a lot with agencies and studios is what they're looking for is actually the weirder thing. They might not make it. They'll hire you and be like, I love this weird, unique script you write. I'm not going to make it. Could you help out with Transformers 7 or whatever? Like, they'll get you to write the generic, but the only thing that's going to get their attention is the one that's like, think about it. The script, it has to be the what the fuck? Like, and so yeah,
right. You have to kind of overcompensate in a way. Like not even what's good now. It's like
100%.
For sure. Because even if you have the script, let's say someone was doing a script that it was kind of Invisible Man, it was as good as what Leigh did, and he was about to deliver it. And now the movie came out and he showed that script, not saying Invisible Man, but kind of as good and with similarities. He does it next week, no one makes it because like it's done. It's called The Invisible Man.
All that screenwriting books from the 80s have killed that whole it's meets thing has just been a dumbbell around the ankles of the people still do that to me. They're like, yeah, it's Lost Boys meets Dawn of the Dead or whatever. And I'm like, don't ever pitch it's this meets this. It's two other movies you've seen. Like the best pitch that I could ever hear would be if someone said, I really don't know how to pitch this. It's just too weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's too, like it can still have a story. It's finding that, it's threading that needle that Fede talked about. Like, where if you want to go off the planet, then go write the craziest thing you want. If you want to write something that a studio would like, work within those confines, but make it so unique that it's not X meets anything. It's like its own genre. It's like what the fuck, what is this that I'm reading?
That could be the genre. What the fuck?
Yeah, the genre is who is this guy? Okay.
All right, we're gonna leave it up to you guys for audience questions. Please make it a question. One question, not a 3-part question. Let's start over here. We're bringing the mic over.
Absolutely love Invisible Man. I'm not usually like scared or I see something like you say a mile away, and you got me many times, so bravo on that. and say with No Breathe too. That was a very good, like, tense, crazy one. My question is, what are some of the horror films that maybe inspire your writing today, or books as well?
To me, like the thing is, like, a lot of the movies that inform me, horror movies, are not horror movies. I mean, don't breathe. It's Home Alone, for instance. Like, Home Alone probably a lot more people don't breathe than any other horror movie, because it's you're in the house, upstairs, downstairs, the window, the thing. Now you have like robbers come inside the house and meeting an opponent that they can never expect. It was Home Alone seen from the perspective of the robbers, like not finding Kevin, but like 65-year-old Kevin. But sometimes, we all tend to think that it's the horror that inspires horror, and I think the horror comes from within. I think the horror comes from one of the things I'm scared of in real life. Every time you promoting one of the movies, the question that every reporter asks is like, what scares you? Because they think you're a fucking psychopath. And the movie is just soft, so they think like nothing will scare you. And my answer is like everything you've seen in that movie scares me. It's probably what deep inside is what is my biggest fear. So it comes from, because that's the only way to, I think, to write scary stuff. It's like in the comedies. No one could write a joke by design and think like, I don't find it funny, but I'm assuming if the science is correct, people will laugh at this joke, right? I mean, Spock maybe, but it just doesn't work that way. The scary stuff is the same. It just comes from whatever scares you, and when you write it, and when you write something that's good, it just gives you a chill.
If you can't scare yourself, you can't write horror.
Yeah, totally. On Evil Dead, I remember like that. It was really terrifying, like in the middle of the night, writing in my bed, like stuff that I was like, this is just too bad to be in my head, and learn a lot about myself and what I thought was scary, which I never explored before. So a lot of the craft of some stuff come from movies, but not necessarily horror. It's just it depends on the mood. But that was
I would say, anything that really disturbs me, I guess, again, they're not always horror movies, but, I loved Hereditary that I mentioned. I love The Lodge, which just came out recently. I love a film from a few years ago called Under the Skin. That really disturbed the shit out of me. That scene with the baby on the beach will never leave me. It's so simple, but it's just so, like, primally inhuman. And so those movies really stay with me. And then, but again, I think when you're writing film, at some point you need to get away from your inspirations and figure out what the language of this movie is, so that you are not making an homage to some other movie. I mean, not that it hasn't been done and done well, right? Obviously, like
the Joker.
Right, or Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's like a tribute to these old serials they used to make in the 30s, and it's absolutely amazing. There's so many ways to make a great movie. I just think I don't think it helps to be like, okay, how is this movie like other movies? Trying to get into your own language, And but definitely watch things that inspire you while you're writing, like movies that just make you excited about movies. And they could come from anywhere. I think one of the scariest horror directors is David Lynch, and he's not a horror director. Like, what is it about his stuff that is so unsettling? He doesn't do anything. Two people are talking at Denny's in the middle of the day. Like, like, what's happening? Like, he can make a cup of coffee scary. Like, he has something. And the thing is, that can't be taught. Like, you'll figure out through practice whether or not you can do what David Lynch can do. But it certainly helps to watch his films and be like, oh, that's the bar. That's what I'm aspiring to, is to make other people feel how David Lynch makes me feel. And then you start cracking away at it, crying, being upset, and then eventually one day you go finish script.
All right.
Thank you.
Nice. Take back there.
I love what you said about writing screenplays as if they're novels and making them so engaging on the page. I think both of you make films that have incredible sound. And this is like a very specific kind of question, but I'm curious how you guys like to describe sound on the page to make it feel really intense and terrifying, because it's something that is obviously so tied to the visual medium and the cinematic medium itself, but making it feel real on the page. What are some things you guys like to do?
Robert Lee does it better. My scripts are terrible, by the way, if you read them, because I mean, maybe Evil Dead is a little bit, I try a little bit harder, but then after that, you kind of write them to make them, so I don't try to shop them around, or like, so this is like, this is the script I do, this is gonna go down, this is what's gonna happen, these are the facts. So it's just like that kind of stuff. I don't put like, close up this, but I just try to scare myself, and with the sound, it sounds a lot of boom, crash, like a lot of other stuff, just like sometimes it sounded like. A lot of it, yeah, you can describe some of it, but you probably do a better job. I mean, I don't try very hard to do the descriptions. I don't know why. It's because I think I know what I'm going to do, so I try to make sure that maybe when the actor reads it, knows what the fuck's going on. But my bar is really low. Sorry.
I definitely write in a much more novelistic way. I use a lot of similes, which I don't, like her. She looks like her. He feels like all this sort of stuff. And I try not to overwrite in that description, but definitely be. To me, it's the best when it's kind of spare and it's a fast read because the movie is happening quickly. So you still want it to be fast. For me, I want it to be fast. I should stop saying you guys need to do this. You should do whatever the fuck you want. Don't let anyone tell you how to write. But for me, I wanted to read like a movie watches so quickly, but also have these really precise descriptions. And sound is definitely a part of that. We really went to a film school that concentrated more on sound than visuals. And it's got to be the only film school in the world that was more interested in film sound than anything. Okay, that's what that
because
was
it's
all
cheaper
about.
to I got a sound workshop, whatever.
Yeah.
Computer, but you have like shooting workshop because
It was the guy who ran it, Philip Brophy. His whole thing was sound in film. He was a sound designer, so he became the head of the film school and instantly shifted. He became the head of the film school the year I started, so he instantly shifted the whole focus of the film school to sound. We did whole 6 weeks of lectures on the sound in Heat and all this different watching it scene by scene, just listening to the sound. It was kind of funny. He would go to see movies with his eyes closed. He would listen to movies. So yeah, I would put it in there. But then I always do this. I'm like, oh, I should have brought one of my scripts. But I remember the first sentence of The Invisible Man, when she wakes up, I wrote a woman asleep. Suddenly her eyes open. I wrote as awake and alert as a deer hearing a rifle being cocked, something like that. Little things like that. It's these similes that are a bit novelistic, but it incorporates sound, and I think it's good. For me, it depends the way you do it. Fede's writing more from the point of view of, I know I'm going to direct this and I just need the info I need. Whereas I want to write it to be a good read, a cracking read. Oh my god, this is a great read. So that stuff.
It's not that I don't try. I remember reading once. I don't think one of those guys. I think this is McKee. I think one of those guys says no one has ever read a script and say it's so well written and everything and if the story's bad, no one recommends the script as the prose, the beauty of the words, the dialogue.
Yeah.
If there's no story or anything that is particularly interesting, just fuck it, not recommend, because it's talking about readers and studios. But when you read the one that is terribly, that doesn't have a great vocabulary, it doesn't have much flair on the writing, but the story's fucking amazing, that's the one I want to make. So I think it's kind of dealer's choice, right? And once you get a kick out of it, right, that's why you're saying you can do whatever the fuck you want. You won't be surprised, I was at least surprised when I started working in this business, how anything goes. All this stuff I thought it was a way to it depends on the writer or the director. The directors, storyboards, no storyboards, planning ahead. It's all about planning. The director goes just fucking swing it. On the day, and the masters of the craft fucking swing it on the day. And you would think people like Tim Burton, there's a storyboard. He doesn't storyboard. And then you think people that feels super organic so there's a whole questions of the how. Which we love all of us always love discussing how we do it. Never take this as that's what we should do. you should do really what works for you. Like what works for you.
I would do what you think is fun. Like the reason I write like that is because I have fun writing screenplays in that way, like being a bit more flowery, more wordy. But whatever's fun for you, do that.
Exactly. You gotta get a kick out of it. Like in my case, I couldn't do that even if I wanted because I barely speak the language. So I couldn't. So my things are quite limited. They have to be clear. I mean, on the dialogues, I have to try hard of it. But on the description itself, it's kind of a waste of my energy, which trying to make it to give it a flair. It has to be entertaining as fuck. That I do believe that it has to be entertaining if whoever reads it. But I don't have the talent to that. But at the same time, it is whatever gets you going. It's so hard to write in general. I mean, for me at least, it's like the whole getting into it. Like you said, the best part is not writing it. It is a painful process.
You've made these great stories, so obviously getting a story down on paper is something that you can do. So
I can do it. I don't particularly enjoy it. I think I enjoy it more with time, like when I don't put so much that kind of pressure on me, like that I used to, which is bad. I gotta start making more movies over and over, which happens to all of us. Like it's the way the progression. We've seen all the masters of cinema going through that process of like just. Like Brian De Palma suddenly doesn't make funny movies, and so it happens every. And a lot of it is just like if you lost what is the thing that gets you going to find it. Just like you have to take care of it and really value that. Like find what is the joy of it. I think I do have the joy when I sit with an audience and watch it and it works. I'm like, oh, just the joy. The making it itself. It used to be maybe not so much lately, but it used to be like a very painful process of just having to go through it, and particularly if you have a high bar, you really try because I will do a lot of just get rid of everything. Don't read everything. Like start page 1, 2, 3. I go to bed. Next day from 1, again 1, 2, 3. Maybe I get to 4, 5. Next day I go back and start page 1. That means I rewrite every fucking page. 1, 2, 3. I rewrite 4, 5, 6. And everything I couldn't, my OCD couldn't allow me to jump in on, okay, I gotta take what I'm gonna pick it up what I left yesterday. I just had to start from scratch and polish every fucking thing.
It took 17 years.
But I was gonna ask you, like, how long does it take you to write? How long does it take you to write Invisible Man?
I mean, it really depends. I think The Invisible Man was like 6 months from like, yes, I'll do this job to like, here's a finished draft.
But then you keep writing.
Yeah, and more drafts.
Yeah.
Get done. But,
that's a lot of time.
All right, let's open.
Hi, I'm Meg. So I am a big fan of both of yours, but my question is, so I'm about to direct my first short next week, horror, and then I just won like create your sizzle for my feature, and so I've been screenwriting for 5 years, but it's my first time directing, and I would love to get advice from you from taking something from the page and putting it on its feet. So, because I'm very nervous but very excited. So, but I would love to hear your advice.
I mean, congrats on doing it. I mean, it's good. It's good to be nervous. It'll keep you on your toes and it'll keep you, with the goal in mind at all times. I mean, I think, everyone on the set is going to know more technical stuff than you. They're going to know more about the lights and the camera, all the equipment. But you'll be the god of the story. You have to, that's the one thing you'll have. You have to know the script better than anyone else. And so what you have to do is just go to the set of the film already made in your mind. That's my advice. I actually came to, before I directed my first film, I was nervous like you. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. And then I saw an email from the Writers Guild saying, I think the subject heading was, are you a writer who's about to direct their first script? And I was like, why, yes, I am. And I RSVP to this thing just like this. And then I remember a month went by and I totally forgot I had RSVP. And I got this email saying, are you ready for your seminar? And I was like, oh shit, I forgot about that. And then I remember driving here on a Saturday morning and thinking, this is going to be like a couple of dudes who direct wedding videos. Sitting up here, giving that really ethereal, annoying directing advice. Like, directing is like capturing a firefly. Because this is Los Angeles, it was Billy Ray, Nicole Holofcener, and John Wells. And it was like, I learned more in that 5-hour seminar than I did in 3 years of film school. No shit. I filled an entire book with notes, and it was just all this practical. I should just photocopy it and be giving it out. But like, there was so many, that was my Bible, this notebook that I carried around set. But I think, for me, that Fede will have his own thing. I think just know that script better than anyone else. You don't need to know about the lenses. You can educate yourself, sure, but what you do need to know is what the story requires at that moment. So you can describe that to the cinematographer, and then they'll know what lens best matches your description. That knowledge is what will give you the confidence. You should be able to answer any question if someone comes up to you and says, what color are the buttons on this person's shirt? You should know the story so well that you can go, no, he's kind of a flashy character, so I want, like, big attention grabbing buttons. Like, you got to be able to answer. You can't be like, I don't know. Like,
well, I completely disagree. I think you have to allow yourself to go like, how the fuck do I know? I'm not the custom designer. You choose the color. Well, girls just gonna go like, fuck, I don't know the color. I think it's liberating to go like, you won't know 80% of the questions. And it's fine to go like, yeah. It depends how much it matters to you. Great directors know, and they're like, James Cameron will know exactly what not just what color the button is made, it's what it's made of. And don't give me this kind of plastic because it's toxic for the environment, there's this other kind of plastic. He's like that. I mean, he's insane. But he's a genius because of that reason that he makes the movie unique. So you can be that, your style, but I think it's totally fine.
I must be a hardcore control freak.
I heard you are. Yeah, but it's fun. But everyone has their style, and it makes you feel confident. When Leigh obviously needs to go in knowing like I fucking know it, and they give me peace of mind. Everybody is trying to surprise me with like, hey buddy, you didn't tell me what was the color of the button, like fucking blue, and he knows right away, and it gives him the confidence of okay, I feel like in control of the movie I'm making. Right? We'll have different versions of that.
I'll just add to that the other two quickly, the things that they said without going through that. At that seminar that I took away as the key things would be, one is cast your crew with the same rigor that you cast the cast. Like, too many people are like, agonize over some actor, right? Agonize, and then it's like, who are the greats? Who cares? Someone else will choose it. Like, you gotta cast the crew. Make sure everyone's on your team. Or someone. One which is really
simple. You're gonna have one option of the guy that can't afford it. That's it. It's Joe. That's it. Joe, man, it's Joe. Can you get two other options? I just need to cast them right. Can I get two options for the group?
You got two different films.
The group. So that's what I'm saying. That's what it is. There's no one way.
Here's one.
I'm gonna disagree three as well.
It sounds obvious, almost to the point of being comical. But if someone didn't say it, I wouldn't have done it. In a really serious tone, I think it was Billy Ray said, at the end of every day, you have to thank every individual person on the set.
That's true.
And he goes, it's going to be, imagine if you're like, see, I don't agree. People, they don't I was like, I'm really going to pull that one on him. But he has to read. No, but he goes, and he said, it's going to be weird because, first of all, there's a lot of people on a film set. And it's going to be hard to catch them all. There'll be people getting in the truck. And he goes, and second of all, he was talking about features, because he's like, and second of all, by about the third day, they're all going to think you were crazy. And fuck, was he right? Like, I just was like robotically following this Bible. And so by that day 4, I'd be like, before you go, thank you. But every single person every day. And by the way, by that day 20, they were like, but then, you know what happens? The rap party. Here's what happens at the rap party. All those groups have a few drinks, and then you get this one, which you'll get on your film. If you do a rap party, you're going to have like this. You're really nice, man. I gotta tell you. No one's ever done that before, man. Thank you. Like, alcohol is incredible, isn't it? It's amazing what a few beers at your rap party, if you do that every single day of your shoot, or guaranteed at the wrap party after a couple of drinks, everyone there will be like, that was amazing, how much gratitude you showed. No, I can't disagree with that one, can you?
I agree. That's
Sorry,
a
Fede.
I hate to break it to you, she's not having a rap party. It's
I will pay for your wrap. It's our house.
Slowly now.
I've seen it at my mom's house.
Okay, good. No rap party. I
You
gotta
think
get
mom's
this.
not gonna provide pizza? You're wrong, Fede.
Maybe I was stressed you. That's the mother, the wrong one, saying that you love her. Like, I think
Throwing in Uruguay. But pizza gets provided at this one or something. I don't know.
I would say, like, because I agree with number 3, a level of that at least. Not exactly running after everybody, no, but I remember that on Evil Dead, like, Rob Tapper gave you advice, like, the only thing I can give you is, like, make sure the crew roots for you. That's all I'm gonna say. And I was like, how the fuck did I get to?
That's bullshit.
Because particularly in the first movie, in every budget, the difference between the crew that feels like that drunk guy that really appreciated it, and the guy that was like, fuck this thing, it makes a huge difference. It's a difference between having that key shot that makes the whole short, or not having it because you run out of time. I'm sorry, we're going home. And if they really root for you, they really want you to succeed. They go the extra mile, and that pays off like big time usually. So
especially if you're doing a short and people aren't being paid a lot or whatever or anything, you need to go overboard with the gratitude. Because you don't want people to mutiny like they're saying, like people start being like, fuck this, why did I say yes to this? It's amazing the amount of people even making short films that I've seen, I've witnessed firsthand, just being like ruthless. They think that's what a director does. Is like, tell people to fuck themselves. That's what I read about. And like I've seen it firsthand.
But also, like, be honest with I think that's why the only people that like on my I had this big crew in front of me. I'm about to go to this movie. Everybody on set made a movie except me. That's the truth. It's like everybody. The PA made more movies than I had because I didn't know a movie last year. So everybody has made a movie except the guy that's in charge of it. So I was like, fuck, this is like the most absurd situation. But so that was kind of eating me alive to know that, and it saved me to just go like when you do a little speech before you start, which I think I always do, so good to thank everybody for doing this, tell them why you think this is gonna be awesome, why you really believe in the story, like why you telling the story, why we do this. But I remember like just it was addressing the elephant in the room and saying to everybody, look, everybody here made more movies than I have. Like I haven't made 0. You made probably at least 1.
I said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
On first speech on the first day of my first film, I said the exact same thing.
It's just liberated, right? Like you just suddenly acknowledge it. They will know there's a reason why you're there. There's a reason why you're the director. And usually saying that sort of stuff is already a good step. It's like, you're not trying to pretend a good leader will do that. It's just you tell them, everybody, look, fuck it, I don't know, I'm gonna need everyone's help to get this right. And so when people think that they're gonna be helpful and you need them, it really impacts the quality of the show at the end because people give their 20% instead of just.
The myth that goes around is that camera people or lighting people or whatever won't respect you if you don't understand the ins and outs of lenses, when the truth is, the reality is, they respect you more if you say, so tell me about what you do, and you admit that you don't, and you get them, that's when they respect you. When you, I don't know how that myth got started, and there are directors, people always talk about David Fincher knows more about everybody's job on the set than they do, and that's fine to be that guy. But don't pretend to be that guy if you're not that guy. Just be honest, and the respect levels of the crew, they just start surging. Like you'll see people start really responding differently to you.
So one last question. Right here.
Thank you. I love your movies, just with the characters. I love your movies. The characters are so well-rounded that the audience empathizes with what happens to them. And I was wondering, how do you write characters that the audience cares enough or that they're scared for the characters?
I mean, I don't know. I guess it's a hard thing. I guess you have to write someone that you believe is real. I mean, for me, I often base characters on people I know. It's kind of a shortcut to like knowing how someone would act in a certain situation. So that's one thing that I do that helps me sort of create a person. And I guess spend a lot of time in that research period. I mean, that's the fun part, building the characters, like just thinking about who they are, what they like, and you'll get to a point, if you do that enough, I think you'll get to a point where you start to feel the character coming alive a little bit, like, oh, that's such a, you know, that's such an Emily thing to say. You know, I should write that here.
I don't know, like it's just so hard to explain, right? Like how to. I mean, yeah, stuff like that. Like imagine, like some great writers, like well, even the Tarantinos of the world, every character is fucking same. They all speak the same. They just have to, you know, they're very similar in the characterization level sometimes. So it depends on the writer, I guess. I think for me the trickiest part of them all is to understand fucking humanity. You understand movies, because I think the difference between a good script and a bad script a lot of times is like you start reading, you're like, I hate this guy, I hate this person, right? And not in a good way, not in like you know, oh, you're supposed to not like it, like not I don't give a shit. It's just like you read and you're like, why is he doing that? Why is he saying that to that person? And I realize sometimes that some people are just like that in their life. So it's something you can never teach or change. Like it's kind of heartbreaking. A writer, a friend of mine back home, like he sent me a script and I was reading and I thought like, oh fuck. Everything that was wrong with it was that the characters, it's not that it didn't feel real, maybe, but there's a thing about understanding humanity and what makes a good person, what makes a bad person, what makes a selfish person. Like all those values that we constantly judge. And when you watch a movie, that's what everybody's doing. It's like, no, don't like that choice. No, that's a bad guy probably. Oh, she's so nice. Like, oh, we constantly judging these people based on their behavior and how they behave with other characters, how they talk to them. I think for me that's the trickiest part. Like, I really try I'm really interested in humanity, which doesn't mean I'm a good person, a good friend, or like anything like that. I hope I am, but some great writers are horrible human beings, horrible, but they do know humanity so well. You know, like a lot of the masters had a reputation of being bad people. They were just so, you know, they had no empathy with anybody, but they knew humanity. They knew that. That's the thing that is hard to, you know, movies. Go watch movies. Humanity is just go live. There's nothing wrong. Like you have to engage and ask people, like go into tricky conversations with human beings. I love to do that sometimes with loved ones and go and ask them the tough question, like, how did you fucking deal with this thing in your life when this happens? It's like, what is it? What goes inside you? Because to dare to go there and know people, really know them and understand, dare them to take that. And it's particularly tricky for Americans. I think like Latin Americans, we saw like you're right in your face, like what's going on? Like and everybody tells everything they feel, like just blah 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 blah. And here in the United States, I feel like it's everything a little bit more reserved. When people open, they're really open. But at first glance, they think it's like everything. There's a bit more of a I don't know if we all say that about Americans, by the way. Everything that is not, everybody that's not from America. The Saxon thing, we call it. The Saxon, because the Brits are even more. The Brits are really. So how do you break through? That's your job as a writer. You have to really manage to break through people and get the truth about them. And once you get the truth about the filth, I like, you know, when I was in the room when I met with you one morning, Leigh was like, fuck the fucking kids, man. The fucking kids. It's just like a fucking shit show. In my house, but it's like he was like saying that shit, and I was like, that's why I love you, man. He was like, feel the same about my kids. It would take me many days to find one of the American parents to confess the same thing to me, because you know they're gonna think they're psychopaths. They're gonna think I think they're psychopaths because they say fuck my kids. I remember I was in a party, but you weren't cutting up right, and I spoke to this writer, and she's like, and I say I put cameras in my room. I can't digress, but it's a fun story. I put the camera there, and it's a security camera, my kids, and she goes like, I don't like those cameras. You know, like people can hack them and watch your kid. I was like, I don't know, it makes me feel safe. I prefer the security now. If some Russian guy is jerking off to my kids, so be it. She was like, walked away. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. That's my experience with you. Bernie's a bit more taken aback, but it's just like, so it's hard sometimes. You need to get to know people really and connect to that thing and get the reality.
That's why people walk away from being parties.
But the thing that I try to do the most to write better characters too, because once you really get to know human beings, you can create them on the page and they become real. Their shames, the things they're not proud of, we all feel with bad thoughts and shit that's why I'm saying usually the thing here is like, just don't say it, just gonna think you're degenerated or something. I mean, you've seen my movies, you know I am. So the turkey baster after that was no way back. But it's really like I think once you embrace that imperfection of people and human beings and you see it and you start discovering that a lot of people has it. It's refreshing and it's good. When it's not harmful, when it's just like the thing we all have. I think that's the thing I'm fascinated the most, and that's what I try to do in my characters, to really discover their dirty secrets and see how they hide it in the movie. How much they're gonna be able to hide who they truly are. Yeah, all my movies, the leads in all my movies are bad. They're really bad people usually.
Yeah, and make the characters complicated. As Fede says, it's humanity. You know, human beings are complicated. Your friend will do something nice one day, and then the next day says something shitty, and you're like, you know, people just. When I see a movie where the character's instantly trying to be communicated to me in one sense, it's like, here's this person. You know, they're the job, and it's like it feels. It's too easy. You don't want to make, you're not trying to make it a Big Mac. Like you want that the complications of humanity, and also, you know, people talk about backstory, but you know, the character didn't live before the movie started. You're just with them for the movie. So, watching people struggle against circumstances, like watching people react to something that's happening to them, is what builds character the most. Like the old saying, you know, put the protagonist up a tree and throw rocks at them. Like, especially if we're talking horror films specifically, you just want to belt the characters around. And like, so much stuff happens to them that it's just nightmarish. And then watching them react to that is where the audience decides. When Fede said, you know, audiences make up their mind very quickly. So watching people react is where they'll decide who the person is. Anyway.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.